program you're in, because we've got certificate students, we have Ph.D. students, and we have Ed.D. students. So Josh, do you want to tell him what program you're in and where in the program in terms of like the year in the program?
So I'm an EDD student. I'm taking the MMA track, and I am trying to finish my proposal for my dissertation. Right, Dr. Siva?
You're right on the brink of it, brink of finishing.
Hi, I'm Min Min. I'm a PhD student here. This is the beginning of my second year. Thank you.
Hi, Matt. This is Matt Griffith again.
The famous one, right?
That's right. That's right. I'm concurrently enrolled in 2 PhD programs, one in the College of Business and Management, and I just this semester have started the PhD program here in MMA. So I'll be finishing business in the summer and then be solely dedicated to this program.
Nice.
Okay, so Matt is a recent graduate of the MMA program. And for those that don't know, he's now an assistant professor in a tenure track line at Bowling Green State University, which is in Ohio, not the Bowling Green in Kentucky. He's actually closer to Canada than he is to anywhere else in the U.S.
Yes, that is true.
Yes, what, 2 hours from Canada?
Yeah, especially because around the Great Lakes, you've got some spaces where Canada sort of curves in. So you don't have to go all the way north to Canada. I actually go a little bit north and east to Canada.
Awesome.
Fun.
Awesome.
You can do maple syrup runs.
Yes, yes, exactly.
But Matt was extraordinary at being involved in networking, and he did it all on his own without much encouragement or any probably guidance or suggestions from anyone else. And he really benefited from it. And so we've asked him to start today and just kind of share a little bit about what he was involved in, how he got involved, how it benefited him both as a student and afterwards. And so at this point, I'll turn it over to you, Matt.
Brilliant, absolutely. So the way that I would like to, there we go. The way that I want to spend our time, we actually already did the introductions, so we don't need to hit that item on the agenda. But I do want you to think about sort of your research interests and or your career goals, because that really does impact in which organizations you get involved and how you get involved and how it's going to serve you best. And so I'll sort of allude to some of that as we go through. But I really want to spend a little bit of time talking about the benefits of professional organizations in general, the benefits specifically to grad students, and the benefits to your future career. And then talk about how to get involved. Now, I thought about having my personal experiences sort of as a separate item on the agenda, but it really does sort of fit everywhere throughout. So I'll discuss that as it comes up. And then there'll be a discussion period at the end. I know there's some folks who are going to share about some specific organizations that they're a part of. But do feel free to ask questions in the middle if they come up. Sound good?
Sounds great.
All right, so as Dr. Hosbaum said, I'm Assistant Professor of Classroom Assessment, Research and Applied Statistics and Education. And I wanted to put that whole title in there because for the people in the room that know me personally can probably attest to the fact that that is a perfect fit, right? Like if someone were going to design a position specifically for Matt Lavery, that's exactly what you would call it. And part of the reason why I feel like I was able to find exactly the right position has to do with a lot of the involvement in professional organizations and how that shaped my experience in grad school and my the quality of my application. Now the job search is a totally separate sort of a discussion on its own, and so I'm just going to allude to the professional organizations in that context, but there's really a lot that overlaps in those two conversations. The positions that I've held, I was a graduate student representative in 3 different organizations. The Florida Educational Research Association, the Florida Association of Teacher Educators, and you'll commonly hear that as FERA and FATE. And then I was also the graduate student representative for Division H at AERA. And I'll probably wind up talking a little bit more extensively about that position and that involvement, because that was a really useful and important part for me. And then I actually had the opportunity, after I was done with my position in Division H, to become the Graduate Student Council Program Chair for 2016, which was the Centennial Conference, which was a brilliant opportunity. That was just so much fun and really added to me professionally. And then also at one point I served as the FATE Treasurer. So there's a lot going on there, and so there's a lot of different ways that I can sort of speak to these benefits. So to start then, the general benefits of professional organizations, they give you regular exposure to new research in your field, and that's both through conferences and journals and those experiences, but it also really helps you keep your finger on the pulse of new trends and important issues that are coming up in your field, so that if there's something developing that you're not already familiar with, you can see its importance begin to build and become familiar with it. Interestingly, that's part of how I got involved with research related to value-added models, because there was this huge conversation going on about value-added models, and I felt like I had something that I could add to that. And so I wouldn't have gone that direction if I didn't see it unfolding in front of me through the professional organizations that I was involved with. I also really love this concept of serendipity. Like, it comes up a lot. And so when you're in the context of a professional organization, you know, there's lots of fantastic research out there. But there's far too much of it for you to go looking for interesting things that are not in your field. But when you're at a smaller scale conference or looking at the program for a specific division or a special interest group within a much larger conference, you get sort of those serendipitous connections where you can see how your work connects with other people's work, and how the work in your field really relates to work that's happening in other fields. And the serendipitous connections that also come up between you and other professionals can be huge. It also, being in a professional organization, exposes you to unfamiliar methods that are used in context. So you might see some methodology that you're not already familiar with used in a presentation or in a particular study, and that gives you the opportunity to see how that methodology could apply to what you do, or it might give you some insight in how to refine your own methodology. There's just lots of benefit to being able to see those things in action. There's also the professional network, professional development, professional service is huge. We're going to talk a little bit about how that adds to the Vita in a bit, but it's also enjoyable. Like, these conferences and events are great fun, and you meet great people. I have thoroughly enjoyed every conference I've been to, not only for the professional content involved, but also for the stuff that I was able to do outside of the sessions, and meeting colleagues from around the nation and around the world. It's a great experience. Those are sort of the general benefits that everybody gets, but there's also some unique benefits specifically for graduate students. So every professional organization that I've been involved with, that I've attended their conference, or even that I've heard about, has some sort of specific opportunity that they design precisely for graduate students. There's graduate student strands or sessions. There's graduate student seminars that maybe you have to apply to, but those application processes are not highly exclusive. They're just generally getting a lot of really good information from you so that they can tailor the seminar to your needs more effectively. There's also opportunities to present that are open to grad students only, and a lot of time those deadlines are different than the typical submission deadline. I'll show you an example in a second. There's some special awards, some special funding that is reserved specifically for graduate students. And then, of course, the reduced costs are huge. It's funny, actually, when I think back, my membership in professional organizations, my first year of the doc program, I joined everything that I thought seemed even remotely related or interesting to me because it was so darn economical. As it turns out, I dropped many of those things off, and I found the ones that were really my core organizations. But they try to make the cost accessible because everybody in these organizations was a grad student once, and they know all about the grad student budget. So the planned focus on graduate students is really, really good regardless of your field. So there's always some sort of conversation or session or seminar, something centered around building your vita, preparing for the job search and how to conduct it effectively. There's advice on getting published. There's things to get you started in research. And those kinds of things are always in place. But it's that those incidental opportunities or again, I love the word serendipitous opportunities to find collaborators, to find and build research teams, and to meet your professional heroes. So let me dive into Division H real quick. Now, I'm not sure, this would be a great time to ask for a show of hands, but of course I can't see anyone. Is there anyone who is not familiar with how AERA is organized?
Go ahead and explain it.
Okay.
That was something that I had on my notes. If you didn't do that, I was going to touch on.
So the American Educational Research Association is the giant in our field. This is the largest professional organization of educational researchers. And because the conference is so huge with something on the order of 20,000 attendees, it's difficult to organize as a single whole. So it's divided into divisions. And so the divisions in AERA are lettered A through L, and each one focuses on a specific aspect of educational research. The two that were of most interest to me were Division D, Measurement and Research Methodology, and Division H, Research Evaluation and Assessment in Schools. So Division D is definitely one to look into. As an MMA student, that's your group of methodologists, both quantitative and qualitative. I actually, because of my K-12 experience, became more involved in Division H. Although I was a member of Division D and sat on some committees in Division D, Division H was really sort of my home division. And when you go into one of these divisions at the conference, it's a much more manageable sized conference. So when you get the program, if you get a printed program, you actually don't actually have to get it on paper anymore because they know how many trees that kills. But when you get the conference program for ARA, it looks like a phone book. It's a giant volume. And so it's so hard to just sort of flip through that and wrap your head around what's going on. But when you're a member of a division, you get by email the Division H program or the Division D program, and it's much more manageable. And so the divisions all also have sections. I'll go into the who we are section real quick. So you've got your Division H officers and then your committees here. And what you find in the program committee, they don't actually show it on the website anymore, but the program committee is actually divided into the program sections. And Division H does a really intuitive sort of organization here. Their research, evaluation, and assessment in schools. And so their sections are applied research in schools, program evaluation, and assessment. And then they also have policy and accountability and policy as another section. So those 4 sections sort of divide up the interests. And so if you're interested in one of those sections, you just find the sessions really easily. The great thing, though, about organizations this large, look how many people are involved, right? There's all these opportunities, and these are the committee chairs, not all of the committee members. And so I'll go ahead. Oh, wait. Yay, I can get my little highlighter thing. I forget how it works. There we go. Okay. So right here, the Graduate Student Committee, AERA divides their graduate student representatives for each division into a 2-year position. And most divisions actually make it a 2.5-year position where you go to 3 conferences. So when I ultimately ran for office as a graduate student representative, I attended the conference in 2013 out in San Francisco as the junior representative-elect, right? They bring you out there so that you can get a sense and make contact. And there was actually funding to get me out there. It's not complete funding, but it's substantial. It was $700 at the time, and it may have increased. I'm not sure.
That's more than we get as a faculty member. So that's significant funding, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, then that's good. And that was $700 for 3 different conferences, right? They really make graduate student and early career professional mentoring a priority in AERA. So I went out to the one in San Francisco, and then I was the junior rep in Philadelphia. I was the senior rep in Chicago. And so then that's 3 conferences in 3 fantastic locations that I got to attend with support, right? And then after that was over, that's when I got to be program chair for the Graduate Student Council, because the Graduate Student Committee representatives at each division sit on a larger Graduate Student Council, and there's positions associated with the Graduate Student Council as well. So those positions sort of, they're fed by the divisions in a lot of ways, but those positions provide even more opportunities to get involved. And so there's just so many places within the organization that you can plug yourself in that is fantastic. But what I wanted to show you was sort of what happens at the conference, right? So at AERA, every division has what they call fireside chats, and these are graduate student organized sessions. Now, just to put it in perspective, when I conducted my fireside chat as the graduate student senior representative, I sent emails to Jim Popham, Linda Darling Hammond, and someone else you may not recognize. That was Maylin, what is her last name? Now I can't even remember. Anyway, she's out of not Australia, the New Zealand. And what I love about it is that as a graduate student, these big name researchers, quite possibly your professional heroes, both Popham and Linda Darling-Hammond fit in that category for me, they read and reply to your emails. And that just blows me away, right? Because there's this culture of building graduate students. Oh, a grad student reached out to me. I'm more likely to respond favorably to their request than I might be to another professional's request, because I mean these are people that are legitimately ridiculously busy, and so there's a sense of leverage that comes from being a grad student, right? And then there's breakfast and business meetings. A lot of these organizations will feed you at anything that are specifically graduate student events, because again, they know what the grad student budget looks like. And then the Division H graduate student poster session is an invited session, so you don't submit through the regular proposal process. Probably here in about another, actually it may have already come out, or it's coming in the next couple of weeks, but submissions for the graduate student poster session are going to be due, and those get emailed to the graduate student representatives and decided on separately. And then that's not even the last opportunity. Even if you miss that window, there's the roundtable research forum, and this is specifically designed for in-progress research. And so long about January, mid-January, early February at the latest, there's an opportunity to submit research that's not even completed yet to discuss at this in-progress roundtable. So all of these opportunities give you a chance to present at the conference, which is often something that needs to happen in order for you to pick up funding to go to the conference.
Can I ask a question on the graduate student poster session? Do those still get printed in as part of the program, even though they're not submitted through the regular submission?
Yes.
Okay.
So as an invited session, so case in point, all of the presidential sessions at a conference are invited sessions. The keynote speaker didn't submit a proposal to be the keynote speaker. They were generally tapped by the president and asked to be the keynote speaker. So they still appear in the program. They just didn't go through that whole process. Now, the in-progress roundtable, generally that list is finalized late enough that it doesn't wind up in the printed program, but you can print out the web page view of the program so that you can submit it for funding from your university. And then the other thing that's really, really, really great about these conferences is that those serendipitous opportunities, the Division H has a social event all the time. There's also a meeting that's not even on this list that they sort of jokingly refer to as the movers and shakers session. Basically, it's a reception that they have during either the first or second night of the conference to have people gather together, and it's the division VP's opportunity to say, hey, we've got lots of opportunities for you to volunteer for this committee, that committee, or the other, and then the committee chairs sort of talk about what it is they need people to do, and it frames out all these opportunities that all you have to do is raise your hand and you're in. And so that's why, let me go back to the slide, that's where the incidental opportunities come from, but that's also the next bit about how to get involved. That's a huge component of it. So the benefits to your future career path. As you're thinking about all of this, there's a lot that I learned at professional conferences that I would not necessarily have gotten through other sources, right? So all those graduate student seminar sessions on the career path and building your vita, and I remember in particular there was one at FERA that was specifically contrasting those who might want to pursue a position as tenure track faculty and those who might consider something with a research company or something in a corporate setting or a nonprofit organization or something like that. So that the participants in the session could really get a sense of how do I tailor myself for the path that I want to take. And that kind of information, it's not easy to just go down the hall and ask somebody, hey, what do I need to think about if I want to join a nonprofit or a research company? Because most of the people down the hall are faculty. That's what they know, right? And so the kinds of things that you can glean from this really broaden sort of your perspective, and that's fantastic. And it also allows you to demonstrate now that you can fulfill the expectations of the job you want later. Professional service is an aspect of my job, and I'm confident that there was no question in the mind of the search committee that I could do that successfully because I was involved as a graduate student in so many things. So starting to sort of build that credibility for the job you want to do. So it reminds me of a statement my mother used to make. Don't dress for the job you've got, dress for the job you want. It's a similar concept. Demonstrate that you have the capability to perform the duties of the job you want, and it makes you more marketable when you go to try to find that job. And it also gives you more visibility in your field. Like I appreciate now that there are people that I can send an email with a question and they recognize the name. People that I know through Division H, some of the people that I met at various events, it gives you a chance to sort of connect with them. And the last one, I actually did a quick quantitative count. I have 97 items on the Vita that I sent in for my job application. 34 of those were directly as a result of professional organizations. Either things that I presented at those conferences, papers that I wrote through people that I met there, service opportunities. So 35% of what makes me marketable came directly from these professional organizations. So, that sounds fantastic, right? So how do you do it? I'll give you 7 steps to successful surface. The first one, and it's listed first because it's oddly the most important in ways that I didn't expect. Go to the conference. Just go. Go, volunteer. If you can present something, that's great. Even if you can't, if it's the right organization for you, go. Attend anything that's marketed for grad students. Talk to everybody. And, volunteer. The first conference that I went to was FERA in 2010, and I went as a student volunteer. I sat behind the registration desk for a couple hours, and because of that, I can't remember if my registration was waived or if it was half price, but it was a good deal. And then while I was there, I made contacts and I learned about some of the things. The next year, I presented a poster there at a graduate student poster session that I didn't know existed until I saw it there. Ran for graduate student representative and got that position. And so it just sort of all grew from there. So step one is to go. Step two is join the organization and the subunit that best fits you. So we talked about divisions in AERA. There's also special interest groups, which are even smaller scale, and there's a ton of them. So the directory is actually split into separate chunks. Let's see, so we'll go here, just so you can see adolescents and youth, advanced studies of national databases, arts-based education research. So anything you can think of, there's a SIG specifically designed to that. I'm a member of the Classroom Assessment SIG and the Educational Statisticians SIG, and the Multi-Level Modeling SIG. I think that's it. But those are really good opportunities as well.
Can I add a quick thing on the SIGs? The one
Yes.
thing about the SIGs is those are small. So AERA, like Matt said, at a conference will have anywhere from like 15,000 plus people attend the conference. But the SIGs in membership are generally probably 100 to 200 people. And for the quantitative SIGs, what you'll find is the same people generally are in multiple SIGs. So like the EdStat SIG is one, multi-level modeling is another, structural equation modeling is another, the advanced studies of national databases. So what you find is the same people kind of congregate amongst the SIGs, but it's a small group. It's kind of like, you know, when you go to AERA, it's like attending worship service, but then the SIGs are like going to Sunday school. So it's like a mini component of a bigger thing. And so that's why the SIGs are really valuable, especially like if you go to the business meetings, you really get to know some of the people in the SIGs. So.
Yeah, I was gonna point out to just what you said, that there's like 15,000 or more people who go to this conference. We can only have this conference in large cities. Orlando is not even large enough for our conference. And there's probably, I'm just going to guess right now, 10 to 15 quantitative SIGs among all of these SIGs. We have one on regression and meta-analysis and anything you like. I mean, it's just some really cool stuff. Longitudinal data analysis. They have, and I think actually the submission and acceptance of proposals to the divisions A through H, is it H the last one?
L.
L, okay. They are fierce.
Yes.
Sometimes when you're a beginner, it's nice to kind of go to the small quantitative SIGs, not only because you're meeting people who are quantitative, but your acceptance rate is going to be higher, more than likely. And so that's nice to know, because you get to kind of have your cake and eat it too. You get to be with the people you most share a passion with, and simultaneously you're more likely to get accepted. I know I submitted to D, and my acceptance rate at the beginning as a young person just starting was variable. You know, and they're ruthless. They're trying to eliminate people. They got so many people submitting to, and the one that I think that methodologists attend, the one that Matthew belongs to is one, but Division D is like your high-powered methodologists are going to Division D. It has the reputation that Division 5 has at APA.
Yeah.
It's very, very tough. The only difference is in that APA, you only get poster presentations, which is one thing I want to point out to our AESP, you know, our standards. If you do a poster presentation at APA, you're a lucky duck. You actually competed for it. We should get presentation status. And I would say there, Matthew, if you ever go to APA and you do a poster presentation for Division 5, argue that it's the equivalent of a actual paper presentation, because it has that status. You actually sit next to people who are really well known. I've been there. I think the last time I did it was in 2001. It's been a while, but when I was there, I was to the left of me and to the right of me are people who I had been reading about. You know, that's how well known it is. So just something to point out. The SIGs are actually a very nice way to go. And usually when they have a social, it's organized so that the SIGs are working together. They'll have like 3 to 5 SIGs, all quantitative in nature, together paying for the social that's being organized. So you actually, when you do come together, it actually tends to be very it tends to be that all those people who Debbie says are attending the multiple quantitative SIGs, they're all coming together as a part of one social. And you do have some.
And those socials, I would put those on your must-attend list. I know typically you get the conference program and you think about the sessions, the presentations that you need to go to, and then you do a full day of sessions and you're like, oh, I'm done. I've got to turn in. You know what? If you need to go to fewer sessions so you can make it to the social, do. Because that's where you're going to make the serendipitous connections that are going to last.
So true.
So, okay, so then the third recommendation, make sure you're on the right mailing lists. So most of the organizations, or excuse me, most of the opportunities that I heard about and responded to that built the Vita that I've got, I heard about those opportunities by email. And so, like, the divisions at AERA have a list, for example, but each division also has a graduate student list. So send an email to your graduate student representative and make sure you're on that list. If you want to get involved in a SIG or something of that nature, reach out to them, make sure that you're a member of the SIG, and B, on their mailing list. Because that's how you're going to hear about everything. And then, this word keeps coming up, volunteer. So serve on committees, volunteer for appointed positions. It's entirely possible that you can perform a service to the organization that to you is not a big deal, but to them fills a giant gap that they've been wondering what they're going to do about. Case in point, Division H needed someone to be their web secretary. And the same guy had been doing the web secretary position for more years than he wanted to because no one would ever step up. I'm like, oh, yeah, web pages, I can do that. Okay, sure. That was like I can't even think of the metaphor, like the golden fleece or whatever. That was the best thing to do to make them go, oh, hey, who's this Matt Lavery guy? We gotta get him involved. And so just find a need and volunteer for it. It's amazing what it'll do for you.
Matthew, one thing I'd mention is when it comes to volunteering, and it's something I'd said, is proposal reviewing. They are always desperate to find people to review proposals. You want to volunteer? There may not be a leadership position that you can get where you have notoriety, but contact the chair of any program and say, I'd like to be a reviewer, and more than likely you'll be reviewing.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And then go ahead and run for office. There are specific grad student offices, and so only a graduate student can be the graduate student representative. That sort of makes sense. So definitely try for those. But also some other positions may be open to you. The Florida Association for Teacher Educators was suddenly in the need for a treasurer, and honestly, nobody wanted that job. So I was able to step up and get an officer level position in FATE on my Vita, which was really kind of cool. But then I feel like I would be doing you a disservice if I didn't point this out specifically. Make sure to nurture and maintain these professional relationships, because one of the things that I've discovered is that your field is a much smaller world than you think it is. So when I went online looking for which was the very first FERA conference that I attended, I found the program for the 2010 conference on the web, and as I was flipping through it, I found the name of one of the other assistant professors that was hired, who's new this year at Bowling Green in my department. So our paths crossed at the beginning of my doc program, and they've crossed again now when we both are new hires to the same institution in the same school. And so maintaining these relationships is important, and I will admit this is not my strongest thing. I'm very good at sending, or I'm not very good rather, at sending the friendly email out of the blue just to sort of maintain contact. I don't even call my family regularly, which I really should do better about, but put it on your calendar, make a list, whatever you need to do to make sure to nurture those connections, because they really are going to come in handy down the road. And it's not just a utilitarian thing. It's not just because they're useful that you should nurture them. I have met some of the best people ever through these organizations, and they're just a joy to know. And so it's 7 steps. Step 7, volunteer. Enough said.
Something I'd add to that is, Matthew, is when you go up for tenure,
Mm-hmm.
these people who you maintain those relationships with will very likely be an external reviewer.
True.
And it's good to have those relationships. So you're kind of preparing people. If they know you well, they can write you a strong letter.
Right, absolutely. Because as soon as you start as an assistant professor, you should be thinking, who in 5 years is going to be on my external list? And you should start maintaining a list of who those potential people could be. And so start with, who have I interacted with at conferences? Because you want some professional level of knowledge with that person, so that when it comes across and they're asked to be a reviewer, they're they know who you are professionally.
And it's always suspicious to people if you ask people to be an external reviewer if they're from the institution you graduated from, or if they happen to be your advisor. You can't do that. So knowing people at other institutions who have absolutely no contact with you, maybe you've never published with them before, that's another thing people look at, is if someone's writing a strong review for you and they've never published with you before, they'll look at that relationship as honest, and it's more likely they'll believe the review.
I wanted to add one thing about Matt, because he's talked a lot about being involved. And so you cannot use the excuse that you don't have time to be involved, because Matt worked full time and lived in another county. So you have no excuse to say, I don't have time, because he didn't have time and he found the time. So it's like anything, you find the time to do the things that, you feel are important to do. One other thing on AERA, and then we'll have questions for Matt. Don't join until after January 1st, because the membership runs, correct me if I'm wrong, on a calendar basis. So join after January 1st. That way, if you attend the conference in the spring, you pay for your dues for that year. So whatever organizations you join, make sure you have an idea of when the turnover is, because you don't want to pay dues before you attend the conference, because then you're paying them twice to attend the conference. So at this time, questions from students for Matt. Okay, so if there's no question from the students, then I'll turn it over to the faculty, which I think everybody has a few other organizations or tips of the trade to share. So since Hyen is closest, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Bai.
Okay. Thank you, Matt. You are very detailed and very helpful. And also, we really appreciate the introductions of all the organizations you are familiar, and your participants and the involvement. I would like to mention JSM, Joint Statistical Meeting, but I don't put a lot of
emphasize on that because it is really like a Dr. Sivo between our, communications, within the faculty group. But that is also another opportunity that we don't want to miss. Because it is the largest statistical meeting around the world. And with 10 statistical organizations jointly, held that meeting. And usually it's just in the first week in August. So it is usually during the summertime, and you have time to attend it. And also this one highly statistical method focus. So they come from all areas of statistics, like from math department and from the biostatistics, and less people from education though. But it is very high level meeting, and where you can meet all the big people, in the significant people in our area. So if your study focusing on the statistics, maybe you're interested to develop your dissertation in statistics analysis other than measurement thing, probably that is a good meeting for you to go. And also for the, like Matt mentioned, for the membership, student membership is very cheap. It's $18. And then for the early career member deal, that is good. Maybe Matt for maybe also for you, for the regular membership is much higher, but for the early career, that means the first or second year new professors, and they still also the reduction of the membership fee. That is something I did not see from other places. That's $55. And for the meeting registration, like $100 for student. So I know some membership things, and especially for students, they feel a lot to pay those things, but it's really, they do give our graduate students a lot of discount. And this meeting also offers a lot of job opportunities. I know as a professor, so we like our student to be, working at a university level as a professor, but we think we still will have our students have other opportunities, like working at the government. That's the unique of our program. For our students, you guys can get a job from government agency or, school district, and I think bank still, if you are interested. So there are a lot of other places, like they have a job opportunities, not just like AERA, maybe more focused like education or testing, those things. But for this organization, they have wide open job opportunities. So if you are interested in that one, and I think that's all. They have like about 6,000 attendees each time. Yeah. So it's student, among them, student is about 1,000 each year. So they still have a large number. And for AERA nowadays, especially for Division D, many people are discussing within the groups, our groups, the faculty, they talk about our committees. Actually, the student numbers, presentations significantly increased this year's. And when we come to ARA, we saw those younger, young peoples in the younger faces. We can tell this year, this year's. So your enrollment is really, different organizations, different conferences is really good opportunity. And this seems a trend. Okay.
Thanks. So I briefly wanted to touch on a convention that I regularly go to is the American Evaluation Association. And the American Evaluation Association, much like the other conferences that you've talked about, is intended for people who have a role in program evaluation, but only about 10% of the members view their primary responsibility as evaluators. Like the other organizations, it also has smaller groups, and this one has about 40 to 50 topical interest groups, and the ones that I think would be most relevant or interesting to our group are the one that I'm going to plug ours, the Quantitative Methods TIG, which Hyan and I are both program chairs on that. And then also we just started one on experimental design and analysis. So we just started it last year, so that's probably the smallest TIG right now. But the quantitative one actually has over 800 members. That's just for that TIG. So we're very popular. One advantage about this, I've been going to this conference since 1989. Sorry. No, 98, sorry, not 1989. I was like, yeah, well, I was still in high school since 1998. So not only have I been a member, a full member as a faculty member, but also I was a graduate student member. And one of the things that I really appreciated is, unlike APA and AERA, it's not quite as vicious in terms of getting those opportunities. Like Stephen mentioned, if you go to APA, really the only thing you're going to do is a poster. As a graduate student, you have a good shot at giving a paper presentation. And I can attest to this clearly because Hyan and I know who is actually presenting and how they get accepted. So that's one nice thing, is that there are opportunities for graduate students that it's going to be harder to see in other organizations. Other things are they often have socials and programs and sessions specifically for graduate students. And my favorite thing that I just got the notice on is that they give travel awards. So you get money. And I can tell you, when I was a graduate, I think that these are better than when I was a graduate student, you had to volunteer and work the convention, and then you'd get a discounted rate at the hotel. But now it's a cash travel award, so it's a little nicer. So those are the opportunities that you're going to get at that particular organization.
I'll point out a couple of things. Dr. Witta goes to AEA, just so that you know. She also goes to the same conference that MH goes to, and Dr. Hyan goes to. And also, does Liwa go? I didn't know.
Yeah, well, they're like sporadically.
Okay, yeah. I would say a couple of things. The other thing I'd point out is really well-known people go to AEA. So, I mean, you're going to run into some of the top-notch quantitative methodologists going there. So it's nice to be able to have access to them there in a way that you wouldn't perhaps at one of these other conferences. Regarding the American Statistical Association, I should point out that there is a joint publication between AERA and ASA called the Journal of Educational and Behavioral Statistics. I want you to know that. And so you actually are viewed as an educational statistician. That's the technical term that you would have. There is a division actually for educational statisticians at ASA. So if you go to ASA, you can actually find a home where there's a group of people who all specialize in educational statistics. And they're doing some wild things. It's fun stuff, you know, that they're working on. and I think if you do present there, you have you're going to be interacting with the people who actually are familiar with the JEBS, General Education Behavioral Statistics. So you have a higher chance of knowing what it takes to get published in that journal. Take a look at that journal. If you join AERA, one of the journals that you can subscribe to for free as a part of your membership is JEBS, and that's one I usually get. And if you look at it, you'll see the quality of the work that's done in there. It's very, very nice. And I think, you think of American Statistical Association, AEA still, I think, is within the realm of education. ASA, some people would just by gross observation think that maybe it's a little more remote. I would say that in your Vita, just as a general principle, it's helpful to kind of sprinkle your Vita with diverse types of memberships. So it's useful periodically to have an association with ASA, maybe with a business organization, maybe with, just kind of bounce around a little bit. The reason is because you want to, as much as you can, be perceived as a generalist. It's very, very helpful when it comes to building relationships with others to be able to come across as someone who is capable of working in any field. It's good to be very, committed to education, as a person who's in education, and you probably will continue to have jobs for the rest of your career in education. And yet, even within education, you're viewed as being a little bit further going, a little more accomplished if you have some diversification and if you're a little more interdisciplinary in your approach. And frankly, universities are moving in the direction of interdisciplinary work, and it's just helpful when you start to build relationships at whatever university you're at to say that you've had experiences interacting with people from other areas. It actually helps them feel like they can relate to you, that you might understand the kinds of problems they deal with, how to bring to the table certain procedures that are appropriate to their particular field. But I think AERA is probably the key conference to associate yourself with. So I see these other types of organizations as things that you would want to pepper your Vita with. But AERA, as long as you're in colleges of education, that's where you're probably going to want to focus.
Okay, I will mention the FERA before I forgot. FERA, they have a student poster award. So for some organizations, they just have a student award specifically for some like a student paper award or poster presentation award or things like that. That is very helpful.
One more thing on FERA, that's a local, and where is it this year? Usually Lakeland. Okay, yes, Lakeland. So it's always somewhere in Florida, usually somewhere in Central Florida, so they draw from North and South Florida, but it's a small organization. Probably 100 or 150 people attend the conference, and it's a mix of faculty as well as school administrators that deal with the testing component. So a lot of test administrators and the people that do the stats for school districts will be there, as well as faculty. So it gives you a mix of being able to network with faculty from institutions within the state, as well as school districts, which those are potential outlets for employment, not just after graduation, but before graduation as well. So don't discount that opportunity to network with those people as well.
Sorry for being late today. I was stuck in the traffic. So I think you mentioned about AERA, and I think NCME is held at the same time with the AERA, but it's focused on the measurement. So if you do cool stuff on measurement, IRT, and psychometrics, validity, all that stuff, you can present in that SIG. So they have a lot of experts, and so it's a highly privileged Association, I think. There's another conference that's M3 that Debbie has referred to me the first, so I went there a few times. It's in UConn, University of Connecticut in Hartford. So usually they have a high acceptance rate for students. A lot of graduate students go present there, and there are some faculty from the educational research and methodology and measurement field. So so a lot of graduate students there and a high acceptance rate. It's just kind of expensive, to travel to go there. And another conference that I've been to, it's international. It's called Psychometric Society. This year it was in Asheville, North Carolina. And so it's international, but it's focused on psychometrics. So it's measurement and statistics. A lot of experts and some graduate students, faculty from different universities, those privileged universities that, I don't know what is Columbia or North Carolina or UCLA. So they have workshops for students for professional development, and so they have job opportunities available. They have those booklets, or you call it, so that have all that stuff in it. And so I think it's a cool conference, but it's international, so every few years it will be in North America, and this year it's in America, but next year it's going to be in Switzerland. So it might be, keep that in mind. Last year it was in China, so it's expensive to do those kind of international traveling. The membership fee itself is not expensive. It's $90 even for faculty, but registration was $500. So I'm not sure for the student rate they have a lower rate, but it's expensive. So
those are good conferences. Psychometric Society is really well known, top notch in the world of social sciences. And
Steve, they can't hear you without the mic.
Sorry about that. NCME is Liwa, Dr. Liwa says, Dr. Shu, that the NCME is concurrent with AERA. So you get like a 2-for-1. You can actually have two conferences that you attended in a year, but they're actually, you only have one travel cost because they are concurrent. And NCME, I should tell you, is the National Council for Measurement and Education, and they jointly publish standards with the American Educational Research Association and the American Psychological Association, all three, when it comes to the standards for measurement, assessment of students, what teachers should know in the classroom, how tests ought to be created. Policy has been set by those three organizations together, and you actually will find many government standards for pertaining to testing with all three of those organizations coming together to support what's being said. And I will tell you that when you attend NCME, you believe you're at the American Statistical Association. You may not know that when you look at test development, how much of what's going on is truly statistical in nature. You'll be struck by the fact that you see equations being discussed and everybody knows what's going on. It's pretty when I was new to it, it was pretty overwhelming as a student, I couldn't believe, I think it came across much more quantitative than a lot of the things that you see at AERA. So really high-powered people involved there, people who are strongly trained in stats, particularly with application to psychometrics. But I do encourage you to attend those sessions. You have to pay a separate fee to attend them. But NCME, that's a really good one that Dr. Shu mentioned, and the Psychometric Society is truly international. When we say international, you're truly going all over the world. So
Let me say something. Matt, this is Bobby Jean-Pierre. I attended a session where you presented with Debbie at ARA, and I was very impressed.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
I was very impressed. My relationship to the program now is mostly a program evaluation.
Mhm.
And Susan Kistler was my statistics teacher, who was the director for AER for AE for years.
Oh, nice.
And my advisor, Francis Lorenz, had a dual focus, which was quantitative statistics and program evaluation. That how I got into program evaluation also. But other opportunities I think you should be looking out for in your new job is connecting with your STEM people. Because I'm going to NSF next week to work with a group that's looking at developing program evaluation design to look at how we can broaden participation of minorities and girls in computer science and engineering. So we'll be a group of STEM people along with probably some statisticians there next week when we meet. So I would advise you to connect with your STEM people because NSF will also support statisticians working with STEM people. So you need to find those people so you can broaden your opportunities.
Well, and that also dovetails really nicely with the notion of watching what the trends are.
Right.
So that you can be ahead of them. This is a trend that's been building for a couple of years now, and it's really picked up some steam.
Right.
And there's funding opportunities tied with whatever the big trends are at the moment.
Lots of funding, right.
Definitely worth considering.
Okay, just wanted you to know.
Thank you.
Well, I know that we're over time, so any last questions from students or any last comments from faculty? Well, Matt, you were fabulous, and it was
thank you. I appreciate it.
Incredible wealth of information. Did you happen to think to record it? I know you said you were going to.
I did. In fact, the recording is running, and I imagine I'll go ahead and stop it as soon as we're done.
Fabulous. Fabulous. Well, thank you
Put a lot of
so
energy
much.
into this. Thank you.
We will probably invite Matt back to talk on other topics since he's a recent graduate and he's a model student. So he has a lot to share and he's willing to do that. So we're going to take advantage of it. So we'll be in touch with other topics for the future. And thank you guys for coming. We appreciate it. Have a great week. Anything, Matt, else that you want to?
No. I just want to say thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to share this kind of knowledge with the members of my program. So I think you're in a quality program, and I hope that you get as much, if not more, out of it than I did.
Thank you so much. We're going to sign off now. So
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Bye.